Steeler Fury. SteelPerch.com.
Oh yeah, baby! It's the Festivus edition of the Pittsburgh Steelers show on the SteelPerch.com podcast. I'm your host, Brett Ben, also known as Wil Masisak, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter, and enjoying the Festivus celebration. I'm sure we're going to have some feats of strength and some airing of grievances, I'm guessing. And here we are to talk Steelers football, weird season. With me, as always, from I know where. This time, he's not just in suburban zone 22 of the greater Pittsburgh area. He's actually driving between Washington, Pennsylvania, Giant Eagle, and the, what was the other, Peters Township, Giant
McMurray.
Eagle? In an effort to get fish. His name is SteelPerch. He's with us. How are you, sir?
Well, I am 5 of my 7 fishes ready for tomorrow, and Adrian Clem being hired away. It's a Festivus miracle.
And also with us from the south where it's 20 degrees, he's involved in his Festivus shopping chaos today as well. His name is Dom. He goes by FC. How are you, sir?
I have all my 7 fishes, but other than that, I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, the 7 fishes, yeah. We should have the 7 wishes of Steelers Christmas Eve. That would make for a whole good show, but we could talk for 2 hours about that. I'm going to start with you, Perch, because who knows? You're driving. You could go at any minute. I have done the show before while driving, and it's an adventure to try to keep your car on the road. So keep your answers short and to the point, as they would say on the Stan Savran show. Perch, glass half full or glass half empty about the Steelers win over the Titans?
Well, it's got to be I'll go 3/4 full because, they did what they had to do. Like we said, we think that their formula is to win 3 of the final 4 games. You've got to win the 2 divisional games and hope 9-7-1 is good enough to get you a division title. And I think that's their path. I don't think that they're probably going to have a great look with 9-7-1 at getting a wild card. So to me, it's division or bust.
It sure feels like, you could read it either way, though, FC. The Steelers offense never went to no huddle, never appeared to be, supporting it in Ben's hands, kind of. They were happy to play that, Neolithic, Paleolithic conservative football game. It worked out for them. Does this embolden the head coach to just play this way forever? Because now he thinks, we did it without having to throw the football dangerously in the middle of the field.
Unfortunately, yeah, I think that he thinks that it's a formula to win. I don't think that formula works week to week. It's probably not the best game plan or thought process to be entering this week against the Kansas City Chiefs with. But, we do what we do, unfortunately. So, I think that we're going to be looking at pretty much the same formula that we have for the last 13 years.
Yeah, I mean, Perch, they can't stop the run. They can't run, which are things that, you would think typically would make it very difficult for you to win football games. I sort of feel like this game on Sunday, they did it with mirrors kind of. And yet, it's like you could either say Tennessee collapsed because they just kept coughing up the football, or the Steelers defense made plays when they needed to. They were opportunistic. Those would be the cliche answers. I don't know. I mean, I'll say something. I feel like this kind of win in a way is bad for them because it emboldens this sort of strategy of playing it close to the vest. And I think that the season has shown that maybe playing it close to the vest is not really going to get them anywhere against a good team. And you tend to agree with that?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, that game was won by Tennessee's offense being a shit show. I mean, we got 4 turnovers. One of them was absolutely gifted to us where they just dropped the snap. They had a muffed punt that we almost recovered. They threw the ball directly between the 5s and Devin Bush's jersey. once. They threw another ball right into his arm another time. I mean, Tennessee did everything they possibly could to give us the ball on their side of the field. And, the defense isn't good enough to have that be your strategy. A lot of smoke and mirrors. I think it was more Tennessee shooting themselves in the foot than it was, the Steelers playing a great defensive game. Those 4 turnovers were gifts, and we did next to nothing with them, and, we're able to win by default, basically.
Yeah, I mean, FC, they, it's like you got to credit the defense a little bit for at least securing the turnovers when they did. And I would say it's now a couple of weeks in a row with some turnovers for the defense. I mean, that would appear to be at least reversion to the mean, since they didn't have very many turnovers earlier in the season. But like I said, do you think, hey, here's a broader question. In 2021 NFL terms, can you have any aspirations of winning a lot of games where you're dependent on winning the turnover battle, not making any mistakes on offense, and yet still allowing the other team to move up and down the field, but just tighten in the red zone? Like, is that formula, which is kind of like the 2008 formula, does that work now? Are we, are we just on this show against it so we don't like it when it works, but it works?
If you have an elite defense, it could still work. I don't think the Steelers have an elite defense. So I think you can win some games. I don't think you can win meaningful games with that strategy anymore. So my answer would be no. I think defensively, you had certain players probably play their best game definitely of the season and for a long time. I mean, Edmonds was fantastic. He had 1 or 2 misses, but he had 7 or 8 just beautiful plays. And if the Steelers are going to win meaningful games, they're going to need unexpected players to step up, and they're going to. My biggest complaint about the Steelers-Tennessee game, outside of not taking advantage of the turnovers, was why didn't Montavious Adams have the hat? That's the only thing I want to know. Why didn't he dress?
He had COVID. He was out with COVID.
Oh, was he? Okay, yeah. Perfectly fine. I missed that. Then, all things, taken into account, Steelers defense you cannot complain about. Ray McLeod you can't complain about. He actually, gave us some decent field position. Yeah. And the team competed, so.
No, I thought actually you pointed out something I said on the day that people won't, they like to pile on these 2 players, but Terrell Edmonds and Ray McLeod actually, they gave the kind of effort and performance that you would hope the players would give on the day when the team really, sort of like do or die. So I did appreciate that part of it. But Perch, I was going to say, the one thing about this style of offense that the Steelers seem to want to play, it feels like what they really miss more than anything in this offense for what they want to do is a guy in the slot like Juju or Hines Ward, who's tough, makes the blocks, makes the tough catches over the middle. And, they just, that piece of it, they don't even have a guy, on the sidelines who they could plug in to do that. Do you feel like they miss Juju as much as I think so?
I think they certainly do from a blocking aspect and that toughness on third down. I mean, how many times have we thrown the ball short of the sticks to Juju and he's hit and he breaks contact and drags somebody forward for that extra yard? And you're like, man, that guy's tough, man. That was a key play. They really miss a true deep threat, too. I mean, you got Claypool who can win the jump ball, and you've got Deontay who's got some speed and he's more of a route runner than just a straight speed guy. But, I think they've got a great route runner in Deontay. I think they have a big guy in Claypool. They don't have a deep speed guy who can take the top off, and they don't have a tough physical slot guy or a guy who's smart and crafty like Ward, who always found the right hole in the zone and, bailed out his quarterback a lot. So, I don't know what the answer to that's going to be other than, re-signing some of the same guys or going out in free agency and making a splash. I think they've got too many holes to draft enough the receiver high. So, it's an issue. One of many.
Hey, by the way, Perch, I forgot to mention to you that I realized I'm kind of monitoring the Facebook Live video feed. And it now does automatic captions as you go, which is kind of awesome. But it put asterisks up when you said shit show, which I thought was awesome. they're
Is
even
swearing not
censoring.
allowed on this podcast anymore? This is my next Festivus airing of grievances. I
Well-
only signed up not because I don't get paid, because I get to swear.
Well, we're going to get to our Festivus grievances in just a minute, because it is Festivus, and every year, it's like this show. Here's the problem: this show, the whole season is Festivus airing of grievances. So when we get to Festivus, maybe we should, not have any airing of grievances. Might be a little bit easier to talk about. What else was I going to say? I don't know. Anything else about this game, FC, before we move on? Because to me, it's like this. Winning this game against Tennessee, no matter how you had to win it, set the stage for the last 3 weeks. And I think that's really what we ought to be talking about. But if there's anything I haven't mentioned about the game, you want to talk about the punter whose father is terminally ill and had a really up and down performance because his father was there. Buying into that.
I'll think of something a little bit more positive. If it wasn't for an absolutely horrible, boneheaded play call to begin the second half with asking Trey Turner to pick up Bud Dupree. Would you really have known that Bud Dupree or Jeffrey Simmons played against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday? Steeler Nation seems to want to pound on Dan Moore Jr. and Kendrick Green, and it seems to be one of their favorite festivities. I understand we didn't run the ball very well. I think that was more scheme and offensive direction related, but I feel that Dan Moore and Kendrick Green, John LeGlue, even Trey Turner and Chucks played a pretty good game, even though we couldn't really run the ball. Tennessee blitzed their balls off more than they have in the past. Seeing what teams have done to us in the past, what the Chargers have done to us in the past, what the Vikings did, and the Steelers were actually they I don't want to use the word prepared, but they actually picked things up and did a pretty good job.
I'll go further than that, FC. I think Tennessee's defensive line is among the very deepest in the league. They were missing, obviously, T.R. Tart, but Naquan Jones was actually pretty visible in this game. But, like Jeffrey Simmons, as you said, you put the attention on trying to stop Jeffrey Simmons from killing you. He's a guy that could literally get 5 sacks a game if you don't play it right. So I do agree with you. I thought that the offensive line's performance, particularly in the run game, was better than the outcomes. I did a breakdown. I'm not sure if either of you guys have had time to be on the board this week, but on the Steeler Fury's Zone Blitz forum, did a post where I did snapshots of the run game at the moment that the running back got the ball and then where he actually went. And it's like they're there, they're performing. They're not an offensive line that's going to blow people up on every rundown play, but they are going to make enough, room for you that if you are decisive and you have good vision, that you're going to be able to make something out of it. Perch, my take about the run game situation in the last game was that Najee Harris is basically beaten down because they've overused him and they've run him into a brick wall over and over again. Do you think that maybe it's just not just hit the rookie wall, but he's hit the Mike Tomlin run the wheels off wall?
I think he's starting to see ghosts too. How many times can you run into a hole that's not there before sometimes there actually is a hole and you don't see it because you're so shocked? I think that's part of it too, is just that he's been given a raw, shitty deal. I think he's got pretty good vision. I think he's got good power. He's got great durability. He doesn't fumble the ball. We could nitpick over his breakaway speed and all that, but I think he's a talented back and he's made the best of a bad situation. But yeah, there was a couple of times where he could have hit a hole in that game that he did miss. And I think it's just mostly, like you said, he looked visibly frustrated on the sidelines just because he's not been given much of a case to succeed. I don't think Adrian Peterson or whoever your best back in the world is right now would be over a 4-yard per carry guy on the Steelers team.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Go ahead, FC.
No, it's schematic. And you can tell that the player's trying to compete, and he's trying to find something. And if on the inside zone, if 99.9% of the time I'm going to have to bounce it, I'm going to look to bounce it, even though it's the 0.1% of the time where it's blocked up right, or they figured something out. The the offense has no rhyme or reason, and that's the biggest problem with Najee Harris. It's like throw shit against the wall and let's see if it sticks. Let's get to the fourth quarter and let Ben win. And that's not good for building the confidence of an offense and for a rookie running back.
Oh, man, how long have we been talking about this as the Steelers' offensive plan? Throw shit against the wall, let Ben win it late has been the plan forever. The only difference in like the mid-2000s was that you had superstar players, you had a great offensive line and superstar players around them so they could really get away with that and put up a lot of points with it. But, yeah, it's a weird experience watching, as all of us do, watching a lot of other NFL teams play and then watching the Steelers play. I mean, Perch, did you see the Cleveland Raiders game this week where Cleveland was sort of decimated with COVID and played a quarterback off the street?
That was their third stringer, wasn't it? I don't know if he was.
Well, he was on the practice squad, but I think they only signed him to the practice squad not long before that. Nick Mullins is not a nobody either. I mean, he's played a little bit.
Yeah, he's been around the league.
But my point is, he's their third string. He's their third string quarterback. In that game, I'll tell you, I'll posit this. Their game plan was exactly the Steelers' game plan in this game. They didn't really have him do anything. Very short throws, a lot of runs into stack boxes. Later, when they were behind, like starting late in the third quarter, fourth quarter, finally they threw it down the field a little bit. Late he put them ahead with a touchdown, and then their defense collapsed, and that was the game, right? So it's like, how can the Steelers operate for at least, I'm going to say at least 6, 7, 8 years with that same mindset as if they had a third string quarterback and no talent around him, really? Like that's bizarre to me.
Ever since they decided to castrate Roethlisberger, that's basically what the offense, it's progressively gone downhill to, hey, we're not going to let him hold the ball and scramble and take shots downfield anymore. And we're going to do, short, quick passing and get the ball out quick, to let's completely neuter the guy and not do anything beyond the line of scrimmage for, 3 quarters until we're down 2 touchdowns. And then we'll let him go play football. And I would have rather been, played his old style of football these last 5 years and suffered an injury and ended his career, go out like a warrior. What they're doing to him it's hard to watch. It's been hard to watch every game. I just sit there shaking my head thinking this offense is so hard to watch. And then on Saturdays, I'm gifted with Penn State football, and it looks very similar. So it's been a tough year to watch a lot of offensive football for me.
Hey, the next football coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe the coach of Penn State. What do you think?
Oh, don't even. I'm stuck with him for 10 more years as it is.
FC, 2 things really, really quickly. One is TJ Watt set the Steelers' all-time season sack record, despite the fact that he's unofficial. Despite the fact that he's missed 6, more than 50% of 6 games they've played. What do we have? What does he have to do to win the official title as best single season pass rusher?
5.5 more sacks. He'll tie Ernie Fats Holmes.
Yeah. How about Ernie Fats Holmes?
Fantastic. I thought he had an abdominal tear when he came stumbling on the field with 2 plays after he was grabbing at that abdominal tear and he was stretching it out. I got on my laptop and I ordered my first Pittsburgh official Steeler jersey in 12 to 15 years. So I'm all in on that TJ Watt kid. I think he may be a winner.
He may be a winner, right? It looked like he got a helmet or punched or something in the ribs is what I thought. So maybe
I thought you abdominal tear, and then I went back and I looked at it, and I think he got a helmet in the liver. Which, if anybody that watches any boxing or MMA or anything like that, that's known as the body can shut off and you can go pee and poo in your pants. But I can't heap enough praise on TJ Watt as a pass rusher, and I'm starting to feel that he's the same way as a competitor. And what more can you ask for out of a player?
Yeah, indeed. Okay, well, that's a good note to leave that on because we need to talk a little bit about this upcoming game, Steelers at Chiefs. A month ago, people were pretty much saying, well, the Steelers have some potential wins remaining on their schedule, and they played pretty well against Cleveland and Baltimore. We're going to see them again, yada, yada. But the Chiefs game was an immediate check in the loss column. Now there's, some uncertainty about who's going to play for the Chiefs. I'm going to ask the question this way, Perch. Do you think it actually might help the Steelers? Help the Chiefs a little bit, the uncertainty about who's going to play if they all end up playing or most of them end up playing? Because to me, that's part of the deal is like you almost don't know how to practice for them. And then if Travis Kelce ends up playing, then you've got a different defense.
I think a tiny bit. I don't think Kelce and Hill will be cleared in time. I mean, they just got tested positive Monday to get 2 negative. I mean, we kind of held out hope when Ben got, his positive test and he might get back that weekend, and he wasn't cleared till the following week. So I don't think that they'll be available, but yeah, I think that that is obviously the Steelers are going to be preparing for those 2 guys to play. But if they don't play, there is no other Travis Kelce-like person on that roster. I mean, Hardman can kind of do some of the things that Hill does. But I kind of worry that maybe Andy Reid looks at it and says, well, we better go into this game and run the damn ball, which is kind of our weak spot. I think we'd have a better chance faring against them coming out with the mindset of throwing it all over the field. If they really, buckle down and commit to the run, that might be a little bit of a disaster for us that we maybe not expecting. We spend the whole week preparing for, probably the 2 biggest passing threats in the NFL, and all of a sudden they come in and just grind it down our throats.
Yeah, I'll add to that their second string tight end is also on the COVID list. So that's basically their, 4 of their top 5 or 6 targets in the passing game. FC, the Chiefs, do the Chiefs have the patience and the will to come out in a run-first offense and really stick with it against the Steelers? Because I have a feeling that even if they were successful, that they would be immediately looking to turn that into passing offense. And that sort of, the Steelers against the passing game when they're healthy seem to be pretty good.
I do believe they have the patience. And the reason I do believe they have the patience is you look back to the last 2 Super Bowls that the Chiefs were involved in. And it's really easy to, you look at the commercials and say, Patrick Mahomes was a star. Patrick Mahomes led them to those 2 Super Bowls. And I say, not true, my friend. Williams, Darren Williams, who's no longer a Chief, should have probably won the MVP the year that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. And last year, whenever they were completely shut down in the Super Bowl by Tampa, who had a special defense, and I'm not saying otherwise, they really did attempt to run the football against the best run defense in the NFL. I'm not taking nothing away from Patrick Mahomes. Super special arm. Combination of Brett Favre in some ways and Ben Roethlisberger and others. And I'm not taking anything away from Andy Reid. But what I will say is they sometimes get a little too cute for their own good. And I like Nico Hardman. I like Byron Pringle. I like Marcus Robinson. They are not Tyreek Hill.
No.
I like Travis Kelce a lot. Blake Bell, I believe, will play, and I believe he will replace Travis Kelce this week. He is not Travis Kelce. I believe the Chiefs' offensive line is very, and I mean very, overrated to the point that they may not be re-signing Orlando Brown this offseason because of a lack of interest from the Chiefs after they gave away a good bit of draft capital to get him. The rookie right guard from Tennessee, whose name escapes me, had blood clot issues, is a good player, but he's starting to really wear down. I don't know if the Chiefs don't have those weapons, if they don't have Tyreek Hill, if they don't have Kelce. even with Patrick Mahomes, that they are going to scare defenses, even the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, enough to, I won't be shocked if you see a lot of 8 and 9 man blocks from the Steelers. I think the only way the Steelers can win is by attacking, and especially defensively. If they sit back, I think they're going to get ate up, even with the lack of weapons. So I think you're going to see a aggressive defensive game plan in Arrowhead, because I think it's the only way the Steelers feel they can win this game. And I think the Steelers are approaching this game where they have to win the next 3 to make the playoffs. If they lose to the Chiefs, looking at it, it's possible they win the division. It's not probable. If they win this game this week, it moves over to, hey, we can beat the Browns, we can beat the Ravens, we win the fucking division, if everything goes right.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like if they win 3, that they, anything.
10-6-1 playoffs.
What's that?
10-6-1 should make the playoffs, even as a wild card.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's what I'm saying. Either way, I think they're pretty safe at 10-6-1 if they get there. But I mean, we're obviously a long ways from their Perch. By the way, Blake Bell was placed on the COVID list yesterday, so unless he's just a close contact, I think it'd be even harder for him to clear than Kelsey. Yeah. So, hey, it's Festivus week. Not everybody can keep up with all the details. But yeah, I think it's. I mean, they literally have. What's his name? Noah Gray is the only tight end I think they have on the roster right now. So we shall see what they manage to do. Perch, Steelers defense, looks like they're going to be missing Devin Bush. I put missing in quotes, but I will say that Devin Bush, despite the fact he didn't, necessarily finish the plays, I can't say that last week was his worst game of the season. In a way, it felt like he seemed to have a little bit of a spark compared to the previous weeks. And now you're going to get Robert Spillane as the starter. I'm not sure if Buddy Johnson is healthy enough to practice. You might know better than I. Did he practice yesterday?
I don't recall. I think that he did, but I'm just kind of going off of memory.
Yeah, so I'm saying at least you might see a little bit of Buddy Johnson and Gilbert in this game, but because Allen and Bush appeared like they're going to be out. How do you think this changes what the Steelers will do in pass defense against this team? Like they haven't necessarily, I'm not sure you thought Bush was going to shut down Travis Kelce anyway, but what will they do to try to mitigate the changes in the middle of the field?
Well, first I'll go to our 2 whipping boys. Edmonds played a good football game last week. Bush played a less bad football game. I mean, he broke up 2 passes that one of them absolutely should have been interception. He hustled to the ball more. But when I see a Steelers linebacker with a beat on a quarterback who's running the football, I expect Joey Porter hard hit. I expected James Harrison decapitation, Lawrence Timmons hit, any Shazier. When I see Bush go to the sideline and hit Tannehill and fly backwards 4 yards, I kind of lose all hope. But that's just my weekly bagging on Bush. He played better, but man, that guy kills me. I just don't think Kelsey's going to play, to answer your question. I think that Spillane helps a lot with the fact that I would expect Kansas City to maybe try to go more run heavy, and Spillane's just a much more physical guy. I just think he's a better all-around player. He should be out there. In the final drive of the game, Bush was on the bench. Claypool wasn't out there at the end of the game. Those 2 were sitting on the sidelines, and we had undrafted free agents like Spillane out there and Ray. So that tells you all you need to know with where those guys are right now. But
FC, speaking of this Chase Claypool thing, what do you do with this guy? It feels like they have benched him a couple of times already before, and they've gotten mixed results from that. Some guys respond to that positively, where they want to run out there and then suddenly, prove that you were wrong for benching them, or prove that they can do it. But he seems to still be sort of very uneven. What would you do? What's the strategy that might work with Chase Claypool? Does he need something else?
Honestly, what I would do, and I actually discussed this with my brothers, what I would 2 days ago, what I would do is Mike Tomlin is loved by his players. He's loved by his guys. You're his guy. You're his guy forever. I would call Mike Wallace. I would call Santonio Holmes, and I'd call Hines Ward, and I'd bring all three of them in, and I'd have Chase Claypool sit down for 10 or 15 minutes with those three guys. They're recent star receivers for the Steelers, and just talk. And let them share with them their experiences in Pittsburgh, their highs, their lows. And then I would have Lynn Swan and Plaxico Burress talk to them. And I would, Lynn Swan could tell them how great and how well Lynn Swan can go anywhere in Pittsburgh to this day, be recognized, and he's treated like a king. And Chase Claypool has the opportunity to have that. He has the world in his hands. I think he's fast enough to be, he's not Tyreek Hill fast, but he's fast enough to be a star. He has the skills to maybe not be a Megatron, but a level below that big receiver. And he's giving it away. He's giving it away kind of like Santonio Holmes gave it away. He's turning his back on the fan base kind of like Mike Wallace did. The world, is in his hands. And I would just tell him, I'd be like, listen, you have the opportunity to do such great things, and you're pissing it all away. You're pissing away your future financially. Even if you don't want to be a Steeler, what you're putting on tape is costing you tens of millions of dollars. The decisions that you're making today are going to so strongly affect your tomorrow. And that's the type of approach you have to take with them. It's honest, it's blunt, and it's, people that have been in that position. That's the only approach I think you can take.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's an intervention that you're talking about, right? And it's funny, that like it feels like that. If you got any kind of soul, if there's any kind of a spark in there that would ignite it in you, but I'm just not sure. I think they're kind of still figuring out what buttons to try to press. But this much I know: putting James Washington out there instead of Chase Claypool, particularly when you already have Ray McCloud out there instead of Steven Sims or Anthony Miller or some other NFL caliber player at receiver. When you put James Washington out there instead of Chase Claypool, you're just making your team worse. I mean, I know James Washington made a play this week, and kudos to him for doing that. But there's a talent level difference there that makes it very difficult to succeed long term. So I guess I would say you've got to figure out a way to spark. You've got to figure out a way to spark him to do his best without putting him on the bench when you need him. And that's the thing. I guess, they feel like they want to be able to depend on the guys that are out there, whether they are spectacular or not. But man, the talent situation at wide receiver when Chase Claypool is on the bench is not good.
Oh, it's terrible. I don't think Chase Claypool's compete level whenever he's not receiving the ball is not up to par for the NFL. I think that he was able to get away with that at Notre Dame. I believe he was able to get away with that whenever he played juniors football in Canada. Chase Claypool, when you look at the All-22, a lot of times the great thing is you get to see the players come off the sidelines. And there's been times where he's been asked to block the classic Z find, where you're asked sometimes to block the end man on the line of scrimmage, to even get in the way where the effort isn't there and the trust is not there. I don't think the Steelers receivers coach and Mike Kohlman at this point trust Chase Claypool to make blocks to the point where, James Washington is not the greatest or the biggest guy, but he's going to bite your legs to get that block, to block the guy on the end of the line of scrimmage for that Z fine. I think it's a matter of trust, as funny as that sounds. And, I mean, I'm not going to stick up for Chase Claypool, but is there a receiver that's more interfered with in the NFL than Chase Claypool?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Maybe not.
I mean,
right.
And
I think he kind of brings that on himself a little bit, though, because sometimes this year he's been more interested in hand fighting than actually fighting for the football. You know what I mean? Like, I remember that play where he was pushing the guy's arm down instead of just catching the ball.
But a lot of times, if you look, he gets armbarred. So he's trying to chop the guy's arm away so he can get both hands up. I think that his bitching and complaining and his diva, I don't think that's doing him any favors with the referees. 50-50. You're going to show me up? I ain't throwing the flag. I mean, referees are only human. I think that he just needs to, put his head down. The best thing that Chase Claypool could come out and do, honestly, is go on social media and say, I've been immature. I've not been the greatest teammate. I have to work more at my game. I have disrespected, the Steelers lore, blah, blah, blah. Disrespected the referees. A mea culpa, in a way. I think a lot of the fan base could get behind him for that. At least the fan base that has some issues with him. I think that would get across to the referees maybe to a point where, hey, the kid's learned his lesson. He ain't bitching and complaining. Let's give him a fair shake. Because I don't honestly believe he always gets a fair shake. There's times where he has literally an arm where he cannot lift it up because it's being held by a cornerback with both hands, and there ain't no pass interference call. I'm like, are you kidding me? If that's Devontae Adams, if that's Mike Evans, if that's Chris Godwin, if that's little Cooper Kupp, those flags are coming out.
Yeah, and I think it's a size thing too. It's the Mario Lemieux, Ben Roethlisberger corollary, where when you're bigger, you tend to get fewer calls for physical plays against you, even when they're bad. That's one. And then the other thing is, that style of play thing. It's if you are continually involved in physical battles, they're not going to call penalties all day long. That's the thing. That's why teams who play press man coverage and are very physical with receivers get fewer pass interference calls because, they're always doing something. It's always physical. There's always hand fighting. And so the officials are reluctant to call penalties on every play. Whereas you play soft defense and you make contact with the receiver, they're going to throw the flag pretty much every time. So those things are, it's like that. Those things are related. He should be, trying to fight for the ball instead of fighting the other guy more. He might get more calls, even though that sounds counterintuitive to like, hey, the guy's arm barring you. You got to get his arm out of there. I don't know. Maybe you're right, and it's just about the fact about how he's being played, and it'll all work out once he gets some more calls. But you don't know. The NFL seems to play some favorites with calls. That's for sure. I don't know.
Agree. Definitely agree.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, as far as what the Steelers will attempt to do offensively in this game, Chris Jones looks like he's going to be back. I look at the Chiefs and I see a team whose pass rush is pretty much non-existent. And I'm wondering if this is the kind of game where you understand that Ben is going to have time. He understands he's going to have time. Those games usually equate to really being able to move the football a little bit, throwing it. You put that together with they don't really have any depth at running back, and Najee Harris appears to be slumping or sluggish a little bit. Do you think they might actually come out and do what they did against the Chargers, which is more or less center the football about putting it in Ben's hands, or do you think that ship is only going to happen when things go south?
I think it's only going to happen when things go south.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the optimism.
Let's put it this way: whenever they opened up the Titans game with the throw to Deontay Johnson early, like I think first play they threw the ball to Deontay Johnson. We're like, yeah, here we go. All right, we're and then it's like 9 straight runs. I was like, what the fuck are you doing, Canada? What are you doing? What are you doing? I don't understand. I really, really do not understand the offensive game plan and strategy. I mean, literally, I have no clue. It has no rhyme or reason. We're going to try a weak side run into a weak side blitz, and you can see Ben looking like there ain't no fucking way on God's green earth is this shit going to work. and I can't kill it. I honest to God, if I was Ben, I would false start. I mean, you at least get the down back. You're going to have the same 4 or 5 yard loss. You know,
maybe he would do that if he wasn't 100% sure that they'd call a running play on 2nd and 15 or
right, which is even worse. I don't want to sit here and pound on Matt Canada, and I'm not going to say that the Steelers' skill level is phenomenal. But for an example, if Kyle Shanahan ran the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, I think we would be top 10 in the NFL with the exact same players. Everything being the same, I think we would be a top 10 offense in the NFL. Top 10 passing, top 10 rushing, maybe top 5 overall when you combine the two metrics. I honest to God believe that. I think that the Steelers offense has a good amount of talent. If they're healthy, if you have Juju Smith-Schuster on the field, if you have a healthy Eric Ebron to go along with Pat Fairmouth, I think they have a close to an elite level offense, because I really truly believe that this offensive line has gelled and they've come together pretty damn well. Is John LeGlue better start this week, because he brings a consistency level to the offensive line where there isn't the bonehead mistakes. He's reliable at this point. He looks out the damn more. He points things out. Kendrick Green, our rookie center, is the guy making all the line calls. Ben's not making the line calls. Ben's making the adjustments. Kendrick Green's making the line calls. You know, this is a first-year center, a guy that's played prior to this year 3 games total at center. He's making all the line calls. And for the most part, he's making the correct line calls. You know, there is a lot of good to be taken out of the personnel, where the results are. It's like we have, I don't want to use the word retard, but we have a retard that's running, you know, the offense and we're trying to haul wood with a Lamborghini, and we're trying to win a race and a Chevette. It's just what the game plan and what we're attempting to do is not only just the same thing, it's counterintuitive. You know, let's throw the short pass to Chase Claypool and try to throw the deep ball, you know, to Ray McLeod, who's 5'7". Doesn't make sense. You know, why don't we, I'm not the biggest Ray McLeod fan, but he fights for your money. He competes. He wants to make plays. You know, I'd much rather see Ray McLeod in the game than James Washington at this point. Nothing against James Washington. I was a fan. It just didn't work out from here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. It makes me want. You see James Washington's play, and the limitations of Ray McLeod and the way Chase Claypool has been playing this year, and you just wonder, like, what on earth would it take for the Steelers to mix some new wide receivers in the mix?
Miller. Right.
I'm just saying, it's like, what would it take? You'd have to have 2 more injuries among the top 4 before anybody got added, to the mixture and actually got some targets. And why should it have to be, the only way you can upgrade or even attempt to upgrade your wide receiving crew is for some, multiple injuries to happen to you? Like, that seems outrageous. I can't imagine most teams would be that enamored with and locked into their top 2 or 3 guys, and they wouldn't at least have a rotation of more guys. It's a Steelers way, I know we have to deal with it because that's just how it is.
Right. We scour the NFL between, the 2 of us, and Perch really does a good job scouring the NFL. Jeremy does a great job scouring the NFL. What has Anthony Miller done to be put in so many teams, purgatories? With the Texans, with the Bears, and now with the Steelers. He must be the worst practice player who ever existed.
Well, the Steelers have even protected him. I think he was practice squad protected, so I don't even know that other teams can take him. They're just keeping him in purgatory, which is very weird.
I mean, or maybe they're saving him this week because in the limited amount of opportunities he's had, I'm not acting like he scored touchdowns, but he had one of the greatest 7-yard catches that I've seen this year, with the one-handed behind him, and his teammates seem to really like him. If you see, like on the social media or on the Steelers.com, Anthony Miller's the guy that's going to the Children's Hospital. He's the guy that's going to events. He seems like he's a pretty good dude off the field. He's got decent size, pretty good speed, good hands, good route runner.
He was a terrific.
I remember him in Memphis.
He was a terrific slot player at Memphis, blocking dudes. And I mean, my comp for him was like, it's sort of like Hines Ward with a little bit more of like polished skills coming out of college. But it's like and
a little bit less psychopath.
Yeah.
I agree.
But I just mean, it's like I can't believe they haven't at least given him a shot. That's weird to me.
He reminded me of Yancey Thigpen. Now I'm going back for a few years. Obviously, but maybe the younger crowd might be, who the fuck is Yancey Thigpen? But yeah.
Yeah, Yancey Thigpen, we took his money and went somewhere. But yeah, for like a couple of years there, boy, he was really good, like really a good player at his peak. Well, where does that leave us? I mean, they're going to come out and they're going to try to run the football with the sort of lackluster run game without a whole lot of nuance to it. They did a good job against Jeffrey Simmons last week. Do you think here's a good question. Do you think Chris Jones is a better NFL player right now than Jeffrey Simmons?
I think he's more accomplished. I think he's more acclaimed. I think he's put better things on film. I think they're very similar type players where I think that Chris Jones has done a better job of finishing plays. Do I think he's much more of a threat than Jeffrey Simmons? I do not. I just think that he has a knack of finishing plays. I think Chris Jones is a fantastic player, and I wanted to draft him. I think Jeffrey Simmons is a fantastic player, and I wanted to draft him, even with the bad knee. I like big, athletic men.
Yeah. And
I think it's the hardest to find, to be honest with you. It's a big, large interior guy that can really play the run and really rush the passer. That's why we're debating if Jordan Davis is a first-round pick from the University of Georgia, or is he going to be a third-round pick from the University of Georgia? Right.
It boils down to how much rushing the passer do you think he can do? That's really right.
Exactly.
The thing is about Jones, a little bit longer. So to me, they're both really high-quality players, and I would love to have either, let alone both. But it's his length, I think, that gives interior guys trouble. And now I'm not positive if he'll see more action against Trey Turner or Leglue, but I do like the Leglue matchup with him in a way because Leglue, I think, is just a little bit longer built than, Trey Turner is more that stocky guy like Larry Allen without the big reach. He's just more, he wins by walling guys off or whatever. What do you think about potentially the matchups of the interior? I mean, those guys would help.
I think they're going to attempt to play Jones against Trey Turner more than the rookie. I expect that Leglue is still going to start over Dotson. I think that Dotson's going to eventually get that job back, which I may have an issue with. But the thing with Leglue is he re-anchors so incredibly well. He'll get jacked at first, but then it stops. And that's a rare trait in offensive linemen where, you get put back on the roller skates, the ability to drop your butt and the rush stops. And he's shown that pretty consistently he's basically started 3 games. He came in the second play of the game. And I concern more in this game than the Melvin Ingrams and, will be the Willie Gates in the blitzing, because I think that Kansas City is going to play the game pretty vanilla, and they're going to have a similar type of game plan as the Steelers. Is with all these COVID and injuries, that they're going to just try to keep it close in the fourth quarter and let their superstar quarterback win it. I think the Steelers are going to be the drivers in a way of how the flow of this game goes. If the Steelers come out somehow, let's say Najee Harris hits a big run, and we go up 7-0. Kansas City kicks the field goal. We hit a miracle pass play in the first half for the Steelers, and we go up 14-3. I think at that point that Kansas City really has to fire up the offense. And by firing up the offense, I think they have to get more aggressive with the defense, which is going to be bringing the blitz packages. And I'm not the biggest fan of Kansas City, this defense coordinator, but he's shown that he can win 2 Super Bowls. He's shown that he can trick Tom Brady in winning those 2 Super Bowls. And, you know, he has some unique blitz packages. I don't think you're going to trick Ben too much. I think you can trick Matt Canada a lot.
Yeah, and I think you can trick their offensive line a little bit, because that's one thing about having a young group is you know, trying to adjust to weird stuff that they're not accustomed to seeing all the time. Yeah, and I think that's
Agnola. I couldn't think of his name.
Yeah, there you go. No, I was thinking against Minnesota that was an issue that they had, particularly in the first 3 quarters of the game. Was you got a really experienced defensive coordinator over there with a really good pass rushing group, and he was bringing some weird stuff to them that definitely they struggled with. So we'll see how that part goes. I mean, it's an interesting. It's leaving the COVID factor out of it. It would still have been an interesting game just because Steelers have kind of nothing to lose, and the Chiefs. Although winning consistently and finding ways to win every week for 2 months, I'm not sure they're really operating at 100% either right now. So I thought it was already thought it was going to be an interesting game, and we'll see. We'll get to our thoughts about that. But I think, FC, it's time for us to move to our illustrious pick segment, which is brought to us by
Chico's Bail Bonds, and I'm going to give it up for old Gene there, Washington, PA Gene. Coming in and correcting the fine Tony Romo. Oh, my God, was he fucking brutal to listen to. Oh, I came as close as ever to throwing something at the TV by listening to Tony Romo and Jim Nance. But good old Washington PA Gene came out and said, the guy in the White House coming and saying it's short because, well, they're a yard short. And I was just like, thank you.
Yeah, it was like that spot. I mean, spots in general, I've been on this rant for years that I think that the way that it's the methodology of how the NFL measures spots on the field that's part of the problem. In an effort to speed up the game, try to make it simple. In an effort to speed up the game, the sidelines officials, meaning what used to be called the head linesman, it's now called the line. They call them linesman or down judge, I guess. Down judge and field judge, right?
Right.
So those 2 officials are on opposite ends of the line of scrimmage, and they remain there during the course of the play. So after the ball crosses the line of scrimmage, then they move upfield, right? So on a quick passing play where they throw it 6 or 7 yards downfield and there's a tackle and so on and so forth, that spot is made by somebody who the only way that they could really get an accurate spot would be to run directly to where the tackle was made and give us their best estimate of how far the ball advanced before the forward progress was stopped, right? So at the lower levels and in the old days, that's what they used to do. So the official that was closest to the ball would literally run from the sidelines to the ball and try to give you an accurate spot. But now what they do, like I said, in an effort to speed up play, is those officials move, when the ball crosses the line of scrimmage, they move up the sideline. They never come into the middle of the field. So it may be late on a goal line play, but on the kind of play where they spotted this football in the Steelers game, you'll see the official move up the sideline and raise his hand and call it that's where the spot is. But the problem is he's guessing at that point. He's not making a triangulation. He's just literally going up the field to where he thinks the ball should be. And these spots are often very inaccurate and make a lot of difference in games. They make a difference with first downs, with touchdowns, and so on. And some things are easily replayed and some aren't. I think it makes a big difference in the game. It's one of the reasons I feel like with the speed of the NFL game, that they should have gone to the technology they have available to give us really accurate spots. And then on top of that, FC, they pull out this, antiquated thing with two sticks and a chain in between it. And some 70-year-old guy has to like bend over and see if he thinks the ball's reached the post or not. I mean, it's like, what are we doing? That's my end rant. What do you have to say about that?
About a year ago, maybe a little bit long. Yeah, it's about a year ago. I actually fired off the article to you and to everybody where Google found a way. They basically put three or four sensors in the football, throughout the football, and they have little. I don't understand technology that well. I'm not going to say that. And they had about 4 billion little dingers, like little things that would pick up on the dot, where Google claimed that they could have the spine of the football down to like the 64th of an inch. And the NFL referees were like, oh, no, we can't have that. No. So.
No, they should have this is the NFL where they have, it's a, $1 billion enterprise.
Right.
They should have fiber optics in the field, sensors everywhere. And literally like when the play is over, a little light starts beeping on the, starts flickering on the field. And that's exactly where the ball's going to be spotted. You run over, you put the ball there, it's done.
Google and Microsoft both offered to come out of their pockets. The only thing they wanted was, I think, 2 commercials for each game.
No, I could tell you before that the team, the same people who invented the first yard line that appears on the field, right? The yellow line, they did it originally for sailing, right? I know someone involved in that project, and they pitched to the NFL. I'm going to say this is maybe 5 or 6 years ago. They had the same technology plan for things like the goal line, and did the ball cross the goal line. They had that all available to them, and they decided they did not want to have it. The contention that you and others have made is that they prefer the controversy because it keeps people talking about the game throughout the week and so on. And I mean, it's hard to argue with that based on the fact that, they seem to be interested in it. But I raised the point on, my old school, new school football show yesterday. I think it has maybe less influence on the outcome of games. Once in a while, we catch a call that's like, oh my God, that turned the tide. But for point spreads, huge deal. So now the NFL has embraced gambling and embraced point spreads, and yet they're allowing stuff to happen on the field that's totally arbitrary, can't be corrected. Which brings me to the next, airing of grievance, which is if you saw the Rams-Seattle game, the officials basically made 2 calls in this game. They called a defensive holding that was phantom hold on 3rd and long that bailed out the Rams on the drive that ended up being the go-ahead winning touchdown. And then later on the Seattle drive on 4th down, they didn't call an obvious pass interference. Neither of these fouls is reviewable. They have an eye in the sky, a guy who's supposed to correct obvious errors. It would be the easiest thing in the world for him to look at either of those plays and go, yeah, no, that was a stupid call. But instead, they threw this thing at the coaches to, 1 year, then they never actually overturned anything. And then now they have this eye in the sky, but they're not allowing it to apply to that. When you think about the money that's changing hands, will this not drive change in the NFL? Because the gambling thing that's Pandora's box, man.
You would hope so. I mean, gambling is an industry, and it's a big industry. And the NFL, the owners really like their money. It's horrible to say, but they really like their money. And even if it's an illicit industry, and I don't think gambling's illicit, but a lot of people will tell you that it is, if it can bring forth change, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, well, you got any kind of college games you want to talk about this week? It's this
week, no. Next week they'll get awful interesting. But I mean, the way I look at it is probably not until I figure we'll probably be doing a podcast at Wednesday or Thursday of next week, and that's when the college football gets real interesting.
Yeah, I agree. But let's talk for a second about the transfer portal for quarterbacks in college football, because I thought some interesting stuff is happening. I've been high on Cameron Ward from Incarnate Word last year and this year. He's a guy that has 3 years of eligibility remaining. I predict that he won't come close to using all 3. He might be a 1-year guy and get drafted because very talented player. I guess I'm not the only one who thinks so, because it appears Ole Miss has targeted him. That's a guy that they would like to come in this year. And he's been offered by Ole Miss and hasn't accepted. What does it tell you about either the guy's interest that other teams have in him, or his opinion about Ole Miss football, that he didn't immediately say yes to that FC? And what do you think about that? And Pitt taking Keaton Slovis as a transfer. Tell me what's happening.
Number one, the Keon Slovis thing, I think, is a big fucking win for Pitt football, because he is a desirable quarterback that a lot of teams wanted, and he chose the University of Pittsburgh. On to the Ole Miss thing. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because it was going to be one of my closing things. In the transfer portal, I believe Lane Kiffin had the most interesting comment to say about the transfer portal, and it went along with your quarterback. It seems the teams that spend the most money are getting the best kids in the transfer portal. And whenever he said that, I was like, "Oh, Lane Kiffin, you beautiful, nasty man," because it's changed. With college football players being able to be paid, it has changed everything. And I knew it was only a matter of time, especially with the way the transfer portal is now working, and with COVID and not having to sit out if you go, division for division. It's college football over the next year or two is going to go into the complete wild, wild west. And I think you're going to see an end of college football the way we have viewed it for the last 75 to 80 years. And I think you're going to go to more of 32 minor league teams, and you're going to have college football. I don't want to say be sort of like the Ivy League, because it'll be better than that, but I think you're going to see a feeder program for the NFL within the next 5 or 10 years. You're going to have to, with the money and with the corruption that's going to bring. It's just madness. So what maybe the quarterback you mentioned is waiting for a better money offer than Ole Miss can make.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, he's been offered by also Indiana. Like the other schools they were officially offered by are not all that exciting. Indiana, Virginia Tech, North Texas.
Let me ask you this. Bryce Young decides he's going to go to the NFL. Alabama has a quarterback opening. And there's I understand that there's been a lot of movement. There's always kids that go pro that you just don't see. Like Florida. What's going to happen in Florida? I mean, Anthony Richardson, is supposed to be the next great thing. Now that they fired Dan Mullen, he's talking about going to the transfer portal. They already lost the one kid to Florida State. It's literally with these kids being able to, my understanding is being able to transfer with no penalty into the middle of January. I think you're going to see a lot of kids, this holding their cards tight and waiting to see what opens up and what kids are going to decide to go pro, what kids are going to decide, what, I'm over it. I spent, as much time at the University of Georgia as I want to. I want to play. I'm going to Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm going to be the next Will Revis.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, so I was a little bit surprised that he went back. I felt like, he's not the youngest guy. He's a sort of 1 year over normal age for his status of how many years he has left and whatever. And I felt like, if that guy went to an all-star game and competed against other quarterbacks, first of all, and then secondly, threw at the combine in his pro day, he's the guy that of all the potential guys that could have come out, he would be a guy that nobody else is going to want to throw next to him or after him. I was a little bit surprised he went back, but I know I have him as a guy I fully expect to be, quarterback 1 or 2 next year in the draft. A little bit surprised he went back. What'd you make of that?
Josh Allen. Yeah, I'm shocked. I agree with you. I think the Revis projects a little bit like Josh Allen does. Big, super athletic, super arm. whoever's advised them, I probably would advise them to go pro, especially in this year's quarterback class. Because, I mean, I can't see anybody being, from just the way the NFL works, I don't see anybody being ranked ahead of Kenny Pickett, and I don't think Kenny Pickett's the answer for any NFL team.
Yeah, me too. All right, well, let's move on to talking about this week's NFL games. We'll try to get a pick or two in. First of all, do you think, it doesn't have to be complicated, do you think Cleveland has a shot against Green Bay?
No.
Actually, better question. Who do you think is the best team in the NFL right now, like going into this weekend? And who do you think is the favorite to win the Super Bowl? And are they the same team?
No, they are not. Right now, if you ask me who my favorite to win the Super Bowl is, God, if you made me put down money right now on who's going to win it, I probably would go with Green Bay. And I really don't buy into Green Bay. Would it shock me if a team that we wouldn't even be really strongly considering wins the Super Bowl this year? No. I don't think the Rams have a chance of winning the Super Bowl right now. I actually was one of the people that did not get to see the Rams-Seattle game. So I got to be completely honest about that. But I can't trust Matthew Stafford. So I guess I would say Green Bay would be my favorite to win the Super Bowl now and in the future. But that could change week to week, man. You know?
Yeah. Well,
this year is more wide open than any.
It's certainly been a week-to-week league. I kind of feel like the Packers are one of the few teams that hasn't had like a really like, oh my God, I can't believe they lost that games.
Sure.
But I also feel like that's coming for them in the postseason, more likely than not. It's like that's just the way it is. It's like you might as well get it out of the way now, But yeah, I think the Browns, that game against the Raiders, despite the fact that it was with the COVID issues and everything else, was their best chance to keep their hopes for the season because they're in a pretty tough shape. Unlike the Steelers, I think if the Steelers lose this week, they still got a pretty good shot if they win the next two. The Browns lose this week, I think they're kind of in trouble because then they're still behind everybody with 2 weeks to play. That makes it rough. They might have a chance to beat the Steelers and jump up a spot, but jumping up all the way into the playoffs would be pretty tough for them. Hey, I saw a thing this week, by the way, where it was a breakdown of what has to happen in order for the Pittsburgh Steelers to become the number one seed and get the bye week. It is shockingly uncomplicated. Basically, they win in Kansas City. They went out. The Steelers went out, and Kansas City loses to Cincinnati at Cincinnati and Denver at Denver. I don't think Denver is likely to beat Kansas City. That's probably the most unlikely thing in the whole scenario. But basically the rest of it didn't involve anything that would be exactly like a shocking upset. So if you want to put together a parlay for the Steelers to be the number one seed and make some money, you might lose it all probably, but there's a chance you could get it. So that's how close it is between, teams that are near the bottom. I think every division winner has a chance to not make the playoffs at this point, which is really saying something. So moving on to picks, what do you think about Indianapolis and Arizona? Indianapolis is at Arizona. Does Indy's running game, is that enough for them to beat a surely licking its wounds Arizona team?
Indy's running game and defense will be enough to beat Arizona. Arizona's fading yet again. I'm not going to blame Cliff Kingsbury as much for this. Injured quarterback, injured number one wide receiver, 35-year-old pass rusher that plays 88% of the snaps. The Arizona's just run out of gas. Yeah, I'll definitely take the Colts, and I'm not a Colts fan.
Yeah, I'm going the other way. I just feel like it's more a question of Arizona, yes, fading, but B, they have too much to lose 3 in a row. Like I feel like even missing DeAndre Hopkins, I feel like at home against a team that really is not going to throw it all over the yard against them. I think the Colts might have trouble scoring enough, even with their defense holding down Arizona. feels like Arizona in a close one for me. Just quickly, Buffalo, New England. Does Buffalo? I mean, do we just look at the game that New England just played and with recency bias say that, okay, they can be beaten and Buffalo's desperate, or is it just going to be another one of those disappointments for anybody trying to unseat the Patriots?
I think New England's going to win the game. I don't think they're going to cover the spread.
It's a 2-point spread. You think it's a 1-point win?
I actually have it at 3.5. I actually thought it was going to be like a 31-28 type of game. But
okay.
So depending on what the spread is, I think it's going to be a 3-point game, and I think I'm going to favor New England. I'm going to favor Belichick. Yeah,
I think New England at home too. It's funny. Buffalo is another team that had all these expectations in the beginning of the year and just going straight down. They're in swirl mode right now. Last one, Baltimore and Cincinnati. Seems like Baltimore's, every team in the division has some other team in the division that that brings out the worst in them. And it feels like for the Ravens, it's Cincinnati. For Cincinnati, it's Cleveland. For Pittsburgh, it's Cincinnati, right now. Right. It's weird how things have sort of shaped up. Do you think that the Steelers kind of need Baltimore to win this game, I think, in order to have a legit shot at the division? What do you see happening in this Baltimore Ravens game against Cincinnati? We don't know.
I would really like to know who was playing quarterback for Baltimore.
Me too.
And that's nothing against Hundley. I think that he's performed admirably the last 2 weeks. And to be honest with you, if Hundley starts, I'll take Baltimore because he's a better thrower of the football. And people can say what they want. I can take basically from hash mark to hash mark in the middle of the field and remove that because Lamar Jackson can't throw the ball there. And Hundley actually can. Now, Hundley's not nearly the threat with his legs. He's still a threat, don't get me wrong, but he's not a Lamar Jackson type of threat. At the end of the day, I think Baltimore's defense is going to do just enough to shake Joe Burrow, and I think Baltimore will win the game.
Yeah, I kind of like the Ravens in this matchup, even as beaten up as they are. They had some, their problems at cornerback were so bad that they basically triple covered Devontae Adams and let Marquez Scantling sort of run wild. And they were satisfied.
Lazard, yeah.
What's that?
And Alan Lazard.
Yeah, and Lazard. So they were kind of like, hey, look, if you beat us with Lazard and Valdez Scantling, we'll let you do it because we're just not going to let Devontae Adams get the football because they just don't have anybody to cover. I mean, I think that was more a statement about how they feel about their cornerback situation. So that's rough. But I feel like Cincinnati's plateaued a little bit. Their rookie wide receiver, who was terrific earlier in the year, has sort of flatlined. Joe Mixon seems to be kind of hit the wall. The offensive line starting to perk up some issues. So yeah, I feel like, I want to be. I'm not going to pick Cincinnati in a game for them to prove their dominance in the division or the conference or the playoffs until they do it. Like I need to see them do it because as front runners, meaning when they are the hunted, I don't think their record has been very good the last few years. They seem to be better when they're chasing. So I'm going to give, I'm going to cross my fingers and pick Baltimore and hope that they win this game because I feel like if the Ravens win, it gives the Steelers a better chance to catch them for the top spot. That does it for our illustrious pick segment. That was rather long today, but I hope you don't mind, FC. I'm enjoying the conversation. And we got rid of that pesky perch. So it gives us a chance to talk a little bit more. Tell me, we're moving on to our 5-star matchup. Pretty good matchup this week, actually. COVID-infested Chiefs team and a Steelers team who has nothing to lose, really. But both contenders for whatever remains of the AFC by the time it all gets said and done.
I do need to go now. So I'm going to give you my prediction for this weekend, and then I'm going to jump off. But
okay.
I'm going to go. When Ben kind of left the field after he got that gifted rushing touchdown, and sat there on the side on the stairs with his head down and took the ball off the field and kept it. I think that tells you where his mindset is. He knows this is the last ride, and he's going to give you absolutely everything he's got. I think he's going to do enough with the offense to put up enough points to outscore an undermanned Chiefs team. I'm going to go Steelers 23-20. Festivus miracle. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
And to all a good night. Thank you, Perch. I'm sorry we missed your we got your Festivus airing of grievances. We didn't get your Festivus feat of strength, but maybe next time. You want to go first or second? You tell me if you got something good to say. I'll let you go first.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll go first. We've got no problem. So I'm going to pick the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this game, 26-24. I think the Steelers are going to do just enough on both sides of the ball. I think one of the key factors and key reasons why we're going to win this game is something that we're not supposed to bring up on this podcast, but God love Chris Boswell, man. If you look at his season, he got splattered, absolutely destroyed, and misses the game, misses the rest of that game, comes back, and has just been ferocious kicking the football. Kansas City is not an easy place to kick the football. I think Boswell does it well, and the Steelers win by hook or by crook. It's not going to be pretty, but it is going to be a Christmas miracle.
One thing about special teams, but Harrison Butker is the only Chiefs player that's officially ruled out from COVID because he was unvaccinated. So there's no way with the timetable that he would be able to get back. They knew this about his vaccination status, apparently, because a couple of weeks ago, they signed Elliott Fry to the practice squad as COVID insurance, quote unquote. So that's at least they have a guy who's ready to go. But yeah, the difference between Harrison Butker, who is nearly the equal of Chris Boswell, and Elliott Fry, I have a feeling that that's a little bit of a downgrade that could come into play if the Steelers simply, have good success in the red zone on defense. Before the COVID issues, I was actually ready to drop the hammer and pick a complete surprise out of nowhere Steelers victory in this game, just because of what I said earlier about the Chiefs. Yes, they want to run the football, and yes, it's sort of like the Bruce Arians Steelers. They have to check off a certain number of runs to feel like they kept teams honest, but what they really want to do is be Showtime Lakers, which I don't blame them for with the guys that they have. With the COVID issues, I feel like it's a grind them out tough game. It could go either way, but I feel like the Chiefs are going to be kind of shorthanded, and the Steelers are really used to playing this kind of a game. And I think you hit the nail on the head, just enough to win this game. I think it might be a little lower scoring than people are expecting for a Chiefs game. I'm going to make it a weird score. 19-17 Steelers popped into my mind. I might like that as a game-winning score for this game. FC, final thoughts? Any Festivus feats of strength or grievances you'd like to air?
I actually have 0 grievances. And my feat of strength, I believe, was not breaking anything watching Tony Romo or listening to Tony Romo and Jim Nance. So that was my feat of strength. You
stole my thunder. My feat of strength was going to be having sat through the Steelers' offensive game plan for the last couple of years. For sure. But your feat of strength is you made it all the way to the end of this podcast. You listener, Dom /FC, you did better than SteelPerch, who did not make it to the end, but thanks to him anyway. Also, thanks to Jeremy Kohlman, who couldn't join us today, and all of you who have subscribed and sent us messages and say nice things about us on Facebook. Don't forget, you can see the video version of this on Facebook on our Pittsburgh Steelers show, Steeler Fury page on Facebook, and you can also listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts, the podcast app, Google, et cetera, YouTube. And in general, we really appreciate it. Specifically, we appreciate it a lot. And thanks to all those people and everybody who listens and watches from SteelerFury.com and joins us there. I am your host, Bradshaw DeBen, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter. My name is Wil Masisak. Listen, happy Festivus to you. Merry Christmas if you celebrate it. Happy everything, whatever else you celebrate. And let's talk next week after a stupendous, surprising Pittsburgh Steelers victory. Go get them, Steelers.
Here we go.
Steeler Fury.